Hey guys, this video is going to go on our how to do stuff in Japan playlist as a bit of a heads up video about what it's like to deal with Japan Airlines in particular, but Japanese companies in general, because the experiences we're about to talk about with Japan Airlines are pretty much the same as what you'll experience with a lot of other Japanese companies as well. So a bit of background to it. First of all, we noticed that Japan Airlines had been advertising rather heavily on Facebook, and they'd been advertising in English on Facebook quite a lot, spending quite a lot of money on Facebook ads. So we're always interested in things like that, because that shows us if a Japanese company is doing that, that shows us that they're trying to get the foreign market, which means we're always interested to see if they're English friendly, because as you guys know, we have our English friendly directory, and if we find companies are genuinely English friendly, we're happy to put them on there. So we'd seen these ads going on and on for months, these English ads. So we sent an email to Japan Airlines and said, we're interested that you're doing all these ads in English, and we'd like to make a video and tell some people about it. So we'd like to ask you some questions, please, because we always check out first, not only if they have some ads in English, because that's not enough. What we want to make sure is that you can actually do business with a company in English, and then it's English friendly. Just because they've got some pages on the internet in English, or because, you know, in Japan Airlines case you can book online in English, doesn't necessarily mean it's an English friendly experience for you if you have a problem. So we're interested to see if they'll actually communicate with people in English. So we sent an email, and then it took a few days to get an answer, but we did get an answer, so that's good. Okay, that's good. They can read emails in English and answer in English, and that's not being condescending. The fact is that a lot of Japanese companies, if you email them in English, you won't get an answer. You just won't get an answer. So, you know, and again, this is the general heads up. Be aware of this. You know, if you email a Japanese company in English, there's a good chance you won't get an answer. And again, that's fair enough. Again, just to repeat for those people that get all excited about this, and, you know, it's Japan. We know it's Japan. We know these companies are Japanese companies. We're not saying Japanese companies should communicate with us in English. We're just curious to know. We want to know which ones do communicate in English, and then we'll tell people in our directory, because to some people that's important. That's all. If they don't communicate in English, that's not a problem. We're not being critical of that. We're just noting that, and then we'll tell you. But in this case, they did respond. That's fantastic. And the guy said, "Oh, I'll check with you. I'll check with the boss, and I'll get back to you. Please wait a while." And quite often with Japanese company, that'll be the last you hear, because if it's something that they haven't heard before or done before or encountered before, they don't know what to do, and they just don't know what to do, and you never hear from them again. But in this case, a few days later, we got a response from the guy, and he said, "Oh, sorry, we can't help you." So all we wanted was just to ask them if every step of the process can be handled in English, and, you know, we're just curious. But sort of his response sort of gave us our answer. So yeah, they're English friendly, but not real good at communicating with people who aren't Japanese, or people, you know, asking unusual questions. So anyway, so we decided, okay, that doesn't matter, that's fine, they're still English friendly. Just because they won't talk to us doesn't mean they're not English friendly. So then we had a look at their Facebook page. They have a Facebook page in English, and started to go through. We're always interested in what the general mood of the customers is. If we're looking into an English friendly company, we like to sort of, if we're going to tell you about them, we want to know that the customers are reasonably happy first. We don't want to tell you guys about some company and have you go off there and use them and have a really bad experience, because that wouldn't be cool, would it? So got on the Facebook page and went down the page, and yeah, there's lots of people saying, "Oh, wonderful experience, love JAL," and we've heard this lots of times. People rant about Japan Airlines all the time about how good they are, because, you know, the service can be a really good experience. But then in amongst it was some people that were really, really unhappy. There was one guy that he asked for a particular meal and they didn't have it, and they just gave him what they had, and he said, "This isn't what I want something else." And I asked for something else. He'd actually ordered something else, and she sort of walked away and never came back. and he didn't eat it. And when they came to collect the trays at the end and he hadn't eaten his meal, they just took it and put it in the thing, and on they went, and infuriated him. And there was another one who the person they were with had got really sick and had gone really grey and gone unconscious for a moment and then became conscious again, and they called the flight attendant and told the flight attendant, and she went on, and they asked if he could be moved for somewhere he could be laid down, and they said no, and the person asked if they could find out if they had a doctor or someone that could look at him on board, and they just sort of didn't know or don't know what to do and walked away and didn't come back. So that person was understandably pretty unhappy as well. There was a couple other things there as well, and the response from whoever looks after their Facebook page was a cut and paste response, the same response, exactly the same response to every person, saying here's a link to our feedback page on our website, please put your feedback on there. And so we left a message for the people who'd left those complaints and said, what response did you get to your problem? Oh, there was another one that had a problem with the booking, some problem with the booking, Gel messed it up and ended up costing the person another $350, and apparently they didn't hear anything more about it. So a few observations. Nothing there was particularly surprising. We've had similar experiences before with Japanese companies. Usually what it is is that Japanese companies train their staff to be very consistent. So, you know, when the customer walks in, you say this. When you do this, you say this. When this happens, you do this. And they'll actually practice every morning. So like supermarkets and shops and department stores and things will have a big meeting every morning, and everybody stands around and practices saying the same thing. So every time you go to these places, the staff will say the same thing, and then when you walk up to the counter, they say the same thing, and then after you've paid and you're walking away, they say the same thing, and they're heavily programmed, and it'll be the same with the flight attendants on JAL. They'd be programmed to say this in this circumstances, and this in this circumstances, do this at this time and this at this time, and it's sort of the way Japanese companies work. They program. It's the way Japanese society works, is that people are programmed to say certain things at certain times and do certain things at certain times, and they're consistent. And we see this all the time. We've talked about this on previous videos about, you know, you walk into a convenience store, you say, everyone says the same thing. And even just people in society say the same thing. You walk into a dojo, everybody says, konbanwa, onegaishimasu, konbanwa, onegaishimasu. Everyone says the same thing, and it's the programming, and it's sort of like people who could do well in Japan, people who are considered to be, you know, oh, he's really good manager, or he's really good at this, or she's really good at that. Those people are usually the people who have a lot of programming, and that they are well programmed, so that in this circumstance, in all the different circumstances, they know how they're supposed to respond, and they respond in that way. And we know lots of people like this that are considered to be, oh, you know, the person's really, you know, that's the person to make the speech at your wedding, and that's the person because that person's really, you know, he's really good. And what it means is these are the people that are really well programmed, that will give the appropriate response, the expected response to every situation. You know, and that's the way the companies work, that's the way society works, and that's the way most people, and again, there's exceptions to it, but generally this is what you'll experience when you live here, is this is what it's like, you know, and people say the same things under the same circumstances all the time. So that's all good, and the result of that is, that's why you always hear Japanese service is amazing, right? Because this is the result of that, is that when you walk into a restaurant, you know, the staff just appear at your table straight away, or if you push the little button, ding dong, you know, they're there in 10 seconds, and they say to you, "Matase tashimashita, matase tashimashita." Sorry to keep you waiting. And you've only been waiting 5 seconds, right? And foreigners find this pretty funny when we have our friends come from Australia. We'll say, watch this, and you push the button, ping pong, and they go, hi, you know, they're there in 5 seconds. And we tell our friends, you know what she just said? She just said, sorry to keep you waiting. And they think it's funny because that service is amazing. And then they, you know, you do your order and off they go, and they're back again, and here's your food, and it's perfect, and everything's perfect, boom, boom, boom. And that's That's the thing with Japanese service. And so the people that go on about how great the service is at Japan Airlines and how great the service is in restaurants and how great the service is in Japan in general, that's what they're experiencing. They're experiencing that really super efficient, well-programmed, well-oiled machine where everybody's programmed to do the same thing at the same time and do it really quickly. And it's beautiful, it works. However, where it falls over and where the people that were complaining about Japan Airlines, and we've made videos about this previously as well, and where you will have a negative experience with service in Japan is when you have something unusual, and that's where the whole thing falls down, because problem-solving skills and dealing with situations that people haven't dealt with before are not practiced. So where this falls down is people are so used to responding in the way they've been programmed, and everybody responds in the way they've been programmed, and if they don't have a response, they turn to the person they're programmed to ask, and that person responds in the way they've been programmed, and that's the way the system works. So if you come along and ask a question or present a problem to them that they haven't experienced before, they don't know what to do. And when they don't know what to do, quite often you won't get an answer. And that was sort of what the people were complaining about, was when they had these problems, the staff weren't responding. And this can drive you nuts. I mean, we've had this before. Lots of examples of this in the post office and in the bank and all sorts of places. When you have a situation that people haven't dealt with before, they don't know what to do, and quite often they'll do nothing. If we send an email to a company and ask them a question that they haven't had before, usually they won't answer because they don't know how. The person who reads the email asks the boss, he doesn't know, nobody knows what to do. Doshio, and they just let it go, and they don't do any response. And of course that infuriates a lot of people from other cultures because they're used to getting responses from companies when they have problems. Just to on this too, this is interesting sort of part of it. The guy on Facebook that was doing the responding to the problems was sending them off to their feedback page. The feedback page has 5 notes at the top of it, and the first one is just about public holidays and things. The second response is, our responses will basically be made by email, but it may be made by other means, letter, etc. Fair enough. Okay, the third one, even when our reply is demanded, we may not be able to respond if the subject is of abusive nature. Now that's classically Japanese too. This is what you will experience a lot with Japanese companies. With many companies from other countries, if the customer's really unhappy and gets really pissed off, and I want to see the manager, and I'm not happy, and rah rah rah, and the manager will say, I'm terribly sorry, and the managers usually will understand that that's what you get when you get unhappy customers, is you get people that are pissed off. And it's sort of like part of the deal, isn't it, And that's part of the customer service thing, isn't it, is learning how to handle unhappy customers. And the same as across the counter. If you get a customer who goes into the post office or the bank and is really unhappy, part of the customer service thing is to be able to deal with that customer, isn't it? And to communicate with them and solve the problem. Japanese people don't usually respond like that to problems. They don't usually get angry and sort of rant at the staff. So when it happens, the staff don't know what to do. And we've talked about this on previous videos, that if you do that, if you stand at the post office or the bank or somewhere and say, I'm not happy, this is not good enough, you need to fix this, rah, 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 usually what will happen is they freeze up. They don't know what to do. They don't know how to respond to that. And usually they'll respond by smiling or laughing, which, when you're a really unhappy customer, and if you're stressed, if it's something like to do with your flight that's really important, or in the bank, some money transfer or something that's really important, or the post office, or some sort of high stress situation where you're already stressed, it's a really important situation, and you're really not happy, and then when you complain to the staff, they laugh at you or smile, and we've made a video warning you about this before, and they will do it. They will do it, and someone commented about that on the Facebook page. They said the staff, during the whole thing, the staff continued to smile while the customer was not happy, and that's what they'll do. They're programmed that when they're talking to the customer, they must smile. So if the customer's really, really pissed off, they'll still continue to smile. And quite often what happens is if you do get angry and raise your voice and get angry at them, that a Japanese reaction to a bad vibe like that can often be to laugh. And they will often go from smiling at you to laughing. You know, and you can say, look, it's not funny, I'm really not happy, and they'll go, oh dear, and then the other staff that are there, well, they'll start smiling and laughing as well. So, what was the next bit? There's another line as well. So even when our replies demanded, we may not be able to respond if the subject is an abusive nature. So that's an example of that. If you send them a pissed off email telling them you're not happy because you had a bad experience, and if your email to them is abusive, they might not answer you. It's saying, they're just telling you, if you're rude to us, we're just not going to answer you, which is really normal for Japanese companies. They would see that's perfectly normal. Depending on subjects, our response may take time and may not be made as promptly as you wish. So look out, we're going to be slow in our response. And that's really common too, particularly in English with Japanese companies, because quite often there's one person in that department who speaks English and it might be their day off. And we've had that before, where we send somebody an email, send a company an email in English and don't get an answer for a week. And then when you do, they say, oh, terribly sorry, it was my week off. And so that's the English-speaking person in that department, and it could be the same in JAL. They might only have one person there or two people there that handle the English complaints. And if they're not there that day, or, you know, the other thing is they pass these things around. When they do get these problems, they pass them. They, oh, doshio, they pass it. We actually saw a classic once in the bank. Went into the bank with a I can't remember what it was, just a small, unusual thing. And actually watched them walk it around. So one person took it to another person who stood there and went, doshio, and then they took it to another table and asked another person, and then three of them went over to another little office and asked somebody in there, and doshio. And that's what happens, is that your complaint could get passed from person to person and what should we do? And nobody knows what to do. So, you know, if they're not programmed to respond to that particular problem, they won't know what to do. And the other thing is that everybody's always scared. Nobody wants to make a decision or do something, take an initiative, because in some societies taking the initiative to solve a problem is considered to be a good thing, and mean that you're a good employee, whereas in Japan they're scared to, because they're scared of making a mistake or causing some ripple in the pool, you know, that if they do something and make a ripple, that it's going to cause a problem. So it's safer to do nothing, and that's quite often what they'll do. They'll do nothing. So it's a bit of a heads up. It's just letting you know that if you deal with a Japanese company in Japan or outside Japan, but particularly if you come to Japan, that a couple of things. First one is, we've made a video before, don't get angry. Because, you know, as this clearly says, you get angry at us, we won't talk to you. And that's really common. That's really, really common. They'll just not know how to communicate with you, and they just won't communicate with you. And it'll make the situation worse. We've explained that lots of times on previous videos. So just don't get angry, stay cool and don't get angry is the first tip. And the second one is, just expect this, that if you have a problem that's outside the normal thing, so you'll find that you'll have wonderful service experiences in Japan. You know, the service here is usually exceptional because everybody's really well programmed to deliver good service, and that's usually the case. However, be aware that if you have a problem, that this is what it's likely to be a big hassle and a big pain and a big frustration to get it fixed. And you'll need to have a lot of patience. You know, we're really aware of this. If there's some problem that has to be solved, Japanese people naturally have high levels of patience with things like this. So for those of us who aren't Japanese, if we live here, if you have to go to the post office or the bank or some other company or the city hall or somewhere with a problem, then you really have to stock up with patience. You have to be really, okay, look, this is going to take a long time. This is going to be really frustrating. And even if it's a little thing, and that can make it more frustrating, when it's something that's obviously easy to fix, and they go on and on and on and tilt their heads and suck through their teeth and doshio, and the solution's obvious, but it goes on and on and on. You just have to go there knowing that's what's going to happen, and that's why we make these heads up videos. That's why we make these heads up videos, is because if you've heard about this before, if you've never heard about this before, and you come to Japan and you get exceptionally good service, and then suddenly you have a problem and the service is terrible all of a sudden, it can really be frustrating and surprise you, and it can catch you off guard, and you can get pissed off and start yelling at the staff, and then you'll be in big trouble then, because it'll go downhill really quickly after that. So that's why we make these heads up videos, because if you've heard about these things before you experience them, it might help you deal with them in a way that will end up with a better result. So when you deal with Japanese companies, something unusual like this, be really, really patient and really, really calm. And it's hard, it's really hard sometimes, but it's the only solution. Getting angry won't work. In some countries, the loud screaming customer who says, I'm not happy, I want a solution, I want to speak to the manager. In some countries, in some cultures, that will get a good solution. You know, the manager will come and, oh, I'm terribly sorry, and you'll get some sort of good outcome, some sort of positive outcome. In Japan, you won't. In Japan, you won't. If you lose your temper and start getting angry and start ranting at them, it'll just go downhill from there. They probably won't even talk to you, but they definitely won't go out of their way to help you. So, I mean, the fact that talking about it being an unusual situation, they don't know how to handle unusual situations, being foreign straight away makes us an unusual situation as soon as you walk in the door. So straight away they're going to be off balance a bit. So anyway, there it was. Hope that helps somebody. More videos coming soon.